Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah. We're diving into, well, how queer history has shaped how we think about love and relationships.
hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and not just for, LGBTQ plus folks, but like for everyone. How it's changed things for all of us.
I see, kind of like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So our source today is actually an outline, like we're peeking behind the curtain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an outline for a podcast called Echoes of the Past. And the episode is The Influence of Queer History on Modern Relationships. So we're going to be using that as our roadmap for this deep dive.
That's intriguing.
I know, right? And get this, we're going to uncover some surprising connections. It's not just about, LGBTQ plus relationships, but like what we can all learn,
Hmm.
about being more resilient in our relationships, being more authentic, and just building stronger connections overall.
I'm already hooked.
Me too. Okay, so this outline starts with these big moments in history like Stonewall and the AIDS crisis,
Yeah, those are huge.
right? Like major turning points. But I'm curious, like, how did those events actually change how we relate to each other today?
Well, I think, the AIDS crisis, for example, really forced a lot of LGBTQ plus couples to deal with things like caregiving and mortality at a much younger age than most straight
Yeah, that's
couples.
true.
Yeah, and this often brought, incredible resilience and commitment to the forefront of their relationships.
Makes sense. Facing those hardships, I mean, that would definitely shape how you approach things.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, right? Like, has that experience shaped how some LGBTQ plus couples maybe approach tough conversations or support each other, through really difficult times?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like it created this deeper understanding of commitment and strength, within those relationships.
Right. And these ripples, they extend beyond the LGBTQ plus community too.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about the fight for marriage equality.
Yeah.
That wasn't just about legal rights, It was about society recognizing that love is love. Period.
It really challenged everyone to like expand their definition of what a valid relationship looks like.
Absolutely.
And have you ever thought about that, like how seeing more diverse relationships, maybe in media or in your own life, has changed your own views on love?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely made me question some of the assumptions I used to have.
Me too.
Yeah.
And it ties into how queer history kind of pushes us beyond those traditional, husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend labels.
Yeah, for sure. And the fight for non-binary and transgender recognition,
Right.
that further broadened our understanding of relationships too. I mean, way beyond just gender.
It's like those labels just, they don't cover the full spectrum of human connection anymore, do they?
Not even close.
And we're seeing more, I don't know, like fluid expressions of love.
Yes,
And it's honestly, it's really beautiful to see.
it is. It really is. And it speaks to, I think, a greater societal acceptance of diverse relationship dynamics, which is, a really positive step.
Totally. But the outline also brings up this idea of intersectionality within the LGBTQ plus community itself.
Right.
And I think it's easy to kind of lump everyone together, but we have to remember that, someone's experience as a gay white man, for instance, is going to be very different from a lesbian woman of color.
Absolutely. We can't forget about the complexities of race and class and all those other social factors within the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, it's not a monolith.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not. And it makes you think about how we can create spaces that are truly inclusive, where
Yes,
everyone feels seen and celebrated.
for sure. And finding common ground within those unique experiences,
Yeah.
it can add like a whole other level of depth to how people connect.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about historical impact, evolving labels, the need for more inclusive spaces. But what about the lessons we can all learn from this history and apply to our own relationships?
That's the heart of it, isn't it?
It is. And that's what I'm really curious about. Like, how can this history help us build better relationships today? Regardless of our sexual orientation.
That's a great question. And the outline actually highlights two key takeaways.
Yeah.
Resilience
Okay.
and authenticity.
Resilience makes sense given, everything the LGBTQ plus community has faced.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like in a relationship? Like, what does that mean?
Well, think about it. Facing discrimination, legal battles, social stigma,
Yeah.
all of that forces you to develop a certain kind of strength.
Like trial by fire almost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something any couple can benefit from, right?
For sure.
It's about knowing you can weather the storms together no matter what.
being a team even when things get tough.
Exactly. It's about open communication, working through conflict, supporting each other through thick and thin.
Okay, so that's resilience. What about authenticity? I mean, it's a word we hear a lot these days, but how does it relate to building stronger connections, really?
Well, for many in the LGBTQ plus community, that journey to self-acceptance has been long and hard fought.
Yeah.
But that fight has taught them the value of being true to themselves in their relationships above all else.
So it's about like being comfortable enough with yourself to share that true self with your partner.
Exactly. It's about honesty, vulnerability, allowing yourself to be seen, even the parts that you might be afraid to show.
I mean, that can be scary.
It can,
Yeah.
but true intimacy comes from that willingness to be vulnerable, to let someone see you fully.
I love that. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real.
Exactly. And creating that safe space where both partners can be themselves without fear of judgment, that's a foundation any relationship can benefit from.
I totally agree. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. History, evolving views on love, those universal takeaways, but there's still so much more to unpack.
There is. And I think the next part of the outline is going to get even more personal as we look at how these lessons can be put into practice in our everyday lives. It's really amazing how activism can actually shift those societal norms.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the outline actually calls out the fight for marriage equality.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Right. It's huge. I mean, think about the impact of legalizing same-sex marriage.
I know.
It wasn't just a legal victory. It was
Yeah.
a cultural shift. I mean,
Yeah.
it was about legitimizing these relationships in the eyes of the law, allowing them to exist openly, allowing them to flourish.
And it challenged everyone to like think differently about what family could look like, you know?
No, exactly.
Like has seeing that increased visibility of diverse families like change your perspective at all.
Oh, it has. It's been incredible to witness,
Yeah.
really. And I think, that exposure to different ways of loving and building families, it can really break down those old prejudices.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. It's like the more we see it, the more normal it becomes.
Right.
And that normalization is key to like broader acceptance, don't you think?
Absolutely. The outline actually quotes an LGBTQ plus activist who says, the movement for marriage equality wasn't just about the legalities. It was about love being recognized as valid and worthy, just like any other relationship.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
It really highlights that this fight was about so much more than just, legal rights.
Oh, yeah. It was about demanding respect and recognition for a whole community of people who had been marginalized for far too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that fight for recognition, ties into the next point in the outline, how queer history kind of pushes us to think beyond those traditional gender roles and identities.
It's fascinating how the fight for recognition of non-binary and transgender identities, has expanded our understanding of not just gender, but love and relationships too.
It makes you realize that, like, if gender isn't this, fixed thing,
Right.
then why should our ideas about relationships be it opens up so many possibilities for how people can express their love and commitment.
Yeah. It challenges us to move beyond, those rigid definitions and embrace the fluidity and diversity of human experience.
Like we're finally starting to understand that love doesn't have to conform to a single script,
I love that.
right?
Yeah.
There are as many ways to love as there are people in the world.
Exactly. And that's something worth celebrating. The beauty of human connection lies in its infinite variety.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But, as the outline points out, even within the LGBTQ plus community, experiences aren't monolithic.
Right.
It brings up this importance of intersectionality.
It's crucial to remember that race and class and all these other social factors,
Right.
they intersect with sexual orientation,
Yeah.
and they shape the unique challenges and triumphs that individuals face.
So someone's experienced as a gay white man
Yeah.
will be different from a lesbian woman of color.
Exactly.
For example, we have to acknowledge those differences.
Yeah.
Right. And create spaces that are truly inclusive
Yes.
and celebrate that diversity.
Absolutely. Intersectionality is about understanding how, different forms of oppression and privilege can overlap and influence people's lives.
Right.
It's about ensuring that everyone feels seen and heard and respected.
And that shared understanding, that recognition of each other's unique journeys
Yeah.
can create this sense of solidarity
Absolutely.
and bring a whole new dimension to how people approach love and relationships.
Precisely. Shared experiences, especially those rooted in overcoming adversity,
Hmm.
can forge really deep bonds and foster a profound sense of empathy and understanding within a relationship.
Like, hey, we've been through so much together,
Exactly.
we can handle anything. It's a powerful foundation for love and resilience.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those key takeaways from the outline, the lessons we can all learn from queer history
Right.
to apply to our own relationships, regardless of our sexual orientation.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. We've talked about the history, the challenges, the triumphs, but how do we take those insights and use them to make our own relationships stronger and more fulfilling?
Well, the outline highlights, resilience and authenticity,
Okay.
but it goes deeper into how these qualities can be cultivated in any relationship.
So let's start with resilience.
Okay.
We've talked about how the LGBTQ plus community has developed incredible resilience
Yeah.
in the face of adversity. But how do we translate that into practical advice for everyday relationships?
Right.
What does that look like day to day?
It's about recognizing that challenges are inevitable in any relationship.
Yeah.
Disagreements will happen, life will throw curveballs,
Yeah.
external pressures can strain even the strongest bonds.
So resilience isn't about avoiding conflict altogether.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's about learning how to navigate those challenges effectively,
Mhm.
how to communicate openly and respectfully, even when things get tough.
It's about having each other's backs, knowing that you're a team,
Yes.
working through things together.
Precisely. And that's a skill that can be learned and strengthened over time,
Yeah.
It's about building a foundation of trust and mutual support
Hmm.
so that when those inevitable challenges arise, you can face them together as a united front.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
not about being invincible. It's about knowing how to bend without breaking.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that flexibility, that ability to adapt and bounce back,
Right.
that's essential for weathering the storms that
Yeah.
life inevitably throws our way.
Okay, so we've got resilience covered. What about authenticity? How can we apply the lessons of queer history to be more authentic in our own relationships?
Well, the outline emphasizes the importance of self-acceptance
Okay.
as a foundation for authenticity in relationships,
Mhm. Mhm.
It's about embracing who you are, flaws and all,
Okay.
and being comfortable enough in your own skin to share that true self with your partner.
So it starts with being honest with ourselves,
Absolutely.
really taking stock of who we are, what we want, what we're
Yes.
bringing to the table.
We have to acknowledge our own strengths and weaknesses, our hopes and fears, our
Yeah.
dreams and desires. It's about peeling back the layers
Yeah.
and getting to know ourselves on a deeper level.
And then having the courage to share that true self with our partner.
Exactly. Authenticity in a relationship, it requires vulnerability. It's
Mhm.
about being open and honest about our thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
even the messy ones.
That can be scary though, right?
Yeah.
Like what if they don't like what they see?
That's the risk we take when we open ourselves up to another person.
Yeah.
But true intimacy can only exist in an environment of trust and acceptance.
So it's about creating a space where both partners feel safe enough to be vulnerable,
Yes.
to express their true selves without fear of judgment.
Precisely. And that requires, open communication,
Yeah.
empathy, and a willingness to embrace each other's imperfections.
It's about recognizing that perfection is an illusion
Right.
and that the beauty of love lies in accepting and celebrating each other for who we truly are.
Beautifully put. And the outline reminds us that these lessons about resilience and authenticity, while inspired by queer history, they're universal truths that can benefit any relationship.
It's like we're all on this journey of learning how to love and be loved,
Yeah.
more deeply, more authentically, more resiliently. And we can learn so much from each other's experiences, even if our paths look different.
Exactly. The beauty of human connection is that it transcends boundaries and categories.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all striving for the same things, to love and be loved, to feel connected, to find meaning and purpose in our relationship.
But that's a beautiful thing.
It's inspiring to see these celebrations of love and acceptance.
It is.
But I think sometimes, we forget that those celebrations are built on this this foundation of struggle and resilience.
Yeah, for sure. Like events like Pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not just, rainbows and parades.
It's not just a party.
Yeah.
They're about honoring the legacy of those who fought tirelessly, for the rights and freedoms that we enjoy today.
Yeah. It's a reminder that the fight for equality is ongoing,
It is.
There's still so much work to be done
Yeah.
to ensure that everyone feels safe and accepted, no matter who they love or how they identify.
And it's in those struggles, in those moments of adversity that the LGBTQ plus community has truly shown its strength and resilience.
And that's something we can all learn from.
Absolutely. The outline kind of shifts focus here
Okay.
to what we can all learn from queer history
Right.
and apply to our own relationships, regardless of our sexual orientation.
Okay, yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road for me, We've talked about the history, we've talked about like evolving social norms, but how do we actually take these insights and make them actionable in our own lives? Like, what do we actually do?
Right. Well, the outline highlights, two key takeaways, which we've touched on before, resilience and authenticity. But it digs a little deeper into, how we can cultivate these qualities in any relationship.
Okay, so let's start with resilience again.
Sure.
We've talked about how the LGBTQ plus community has developed like incredible resilience in the face of adversity. But for someone listening who's thinking, okay, that's great, but how does that help me in my relationship?
Yeah.
Like, what advice would you give them?
I think it's about understanding that, you're going to hit bumps in the road. Every couple faces challenges.
Right.
Disagreements, life-throwing curveballs, external pressures.
Yeah.
It's about how you handle those challenges together as a couple.
So resilience isn't about avoiding conflict altogether.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's about learning how to navigate those challenges effectively, communicating openly and respectfully, even when things get tough.
Okay.
Think of it like building a muscle.
Okay. Yeah.
The more you practice, working through disagreements together, the stronger that resilience muscle becomes.
And that can apply to any kind of stress on a relationship, right?
Right.
Not just like big arguments, but also like life changes, family issues, anything that puts a strain on your connection.
Exactly. Resilience is about knowing you can bend without breaking.
Yeah.
It's about having each other's backs, knowing that you're a team, and remembering that you're in it together.
Okay, so we've got resilience covered. What about authenticity?
Yeah.
How can we learn from the LGBTQ plus community's journey to be more authentic in our own relationships?
Well, the outline really emphasizes self-acceptance as the foundation for authenticity.
Right.
It's about embracing who you are, flaws and all, and being comfortable enough in your own skin to share that true self with your partner.
So it starts with being honest with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Like really taking stock of who we are, what we want, what we're bringing to the table.
We have to acknowledge our own strengths and weaknesses, our hopes and fears, our dreams and desires.
Right.
It's about getting to know ourselves on a deeper level. And sometimes that requires, some introspection, some digging deep, and maybe even some uncomfortable realizations.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
And then having done that work, it's about having the courage to share that with our partner.
Exactly. Authenticity, it requires vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's about being open and honest about our thoughts and feelings, even the messy ones.
Yeah.
It's about letting our guard down and letting our partner see us for who we truly are, warts and all.
That can be terrifying though, right? Like what if they don't like what they see? What if we get rejected?
Right.
Isn't that a huge risk?
It is a risk, but it's a necessary one.
Yeah.
True intimacy, true connection can only exist in an environment of trust and acceptance.
Right.
If we're constantly hiding parts of ourselves, we're never truly letting our partner in.
Right.
And that prevents us from experiencing the deepest levels of love and connection.
So it's about creating a space where both partners feel safe enough to be vulnerable.
Yes.
To express their true selves without fear of judgment.
Precisely. And that takes work from both sides, Yeah. It requires open communication, empathy, and a willingness to see our partner as they truly are.
Right.
Not as who we want them to be.
It's about loving the whole person, imperfections and all, right?
Yeah.
It's about realizing that those imperfections are often what make us unique and lovable in the first place.
Well said. And I think it's beautiful how these lessons, though inspired by queer history,
Yeah.
are universal.
Like that.
They can benefit any relationship.
It's like we're all on this journey of learning to love and be loved,
Yeah.
more deeply, more authentically, more resiliently, and we can learn so much from each other's experiences, even if our paths look different.
That's what makes this deep dive so powerful, you
Yeah.
know. We started with a glimpse into queer history,
Yeah.
but we've ended up with insights that can apply to anyone, anywhere
Mm.
who's seeking, deeper, more meaningful connections.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
We've explored some challenging topics, some inspiring stories, and some really practical advice.
You have.
But ultimately, it all comes back to the power of love and connection.
And the understanding that those connections, they're strongest when they're built on that foundation of honesty,
Hmm.
resilience,
Mm.
and a willingness to embrace our true selves.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating exploration of the connections between the past and the present.
See you then.
Until then, keep diving deep and keep loving fiercely.